All right. Well, I wanted to post a response to the uh, Max Stirner's anti-ideology, and to explain my conception of what it is to the purpose of the writing of the book, The Ego in Its Own, and largely what we have to consider the framework. It was written in response to Ludwig Feuerbach's, as he correctly noted, his essence of Christianity, and he was to explain the main purpose of the book was basically to elucidate that the purpose of philosophy, our focus as individuals should not be on making the world a better place, which is Moliérism, or recoding the human condition, but rather he's a philosopher, as other philosophers are, a philosopher of self. Now, as his criticisms were, he thought that Feuerbach was smuggling into his ideology of secular humanism, as well as the secular humanists generally have, as many of the ideas of Christianity into humanism, of secular compassion, um, and he shows how the individual is at a conflict with other individuals within himself, and he shows the importance of choosing our own, freely choosing our own values. It's important to note at the end of the book that, and I don't have the book in front of me. I lost my copy. I'm actually reordering a new one. But it's important to note that he says that the egoist is just a piece of nonsense. In other words, the whole purpose of the book, which he says in the, the egoist before the humane shudder, is nothing more than a piece of nonsense. He's demonstrating that he's just playing devil's advocate throughout the whole book. I think that he does have definite values. It's not just a nihilistic uh, work of pure hedonism, or I think that his book actually shares a lot in relation to the Cynics, and the Cynics were very skeptical as far as our ability to improve the human condition in certain aspects. And he's very also much related to Bernard Mandeville and his fable of the bees. He saw through the nonsense that was communism, and I think that it's ultimately a book of philosophy of the self, of self-development, of self freely chosen values through the self, of uh, self-development, self personal autonomy, and how we attain autonomy is through power. That's just reality. Uh, I could go very much into that uh, question of the nature and origins of power in human relations, but the world does involve power relations, whether we like it or not. It doesn't mean that Stirner is drunk on destruction, as Camus said, but it's a realistic assessment that the human condition, as we read Nietzsche and other really works, is human beings in many ways are very unlovely creatures. And the history of the world is a very bitter. Uh, it, it's a one tragedy after another. We have an incredible capacity for heaping all sorts of harm on ourselves, on upon other people. That's just merely reality. So what Stirner proposes is to see why we should not focus on bettering the human condition, but only focusing on ourselves. And maybe I've said too much about this, but he did understand the importance of free market for the individual. He wasn't against maybe one or two programs to help the poor, and I could give you quotes if you. But also the idea of self-consumption. It's that we should, and again, this is maybe Epicurus as well as the other cynical philosophers. It's a philosophy of self-enjoyment. If you want to take drugs, but also do it wisely. He's not against sexual pleasure, but he's against being ruled by our appetites. I could give you quotes if you'd like. He shows an appreciation for culture that shows that we do not have to be slaves to our appetites. Again, the development of the self, and these do not have Christian origins necessarily. But again, hypocrisy is something that we can embrace as egoists, and it's ultimately a philosophy of self-development. I hope I answered some of your questions.